Thanks, Acting Speaker, and I rise today to contribute to the Workplace Injury Rehabilitation and Compensation Amendment Bill 2025. And of course, I think we're all here to say that every worker deserves to work in a safe environment and to come home safely. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, and that can be due to a range of reasons. And following on from the member from Narrabeen, he made the comment of no employer wants to make the call about someone being injured or killed at work, and I accept that, but there are still a number of employers that still do not provide safe workplaces, and unfortunately too many workers still get injured at work unnecessarily, and if their workplaces were safer, we would not have these issues that we're raising today through this bill. This is a complicated area, there's no question about it, and nothing's perfect. It's very difficult in regard to dealing with workplace injury, compensation, return to work. It is very complicated, and I will make reference to the fact that as the previous Secretary of the Ambulance Union, I dealt with work cover every day of the week for paramedics across this state and for healthcare workers that worked in our industry, in the ambulance industry across this state. And I've got to say that sometimes the system and the scheme injured the workers more than the initial injury and the processes that they had to go through in regard to firstly justifying their injury and secondly getting proper compensation, but trying to get back to work. And unfortunately, ambulance was not a great area to try and return people back to work because it had limited places for people to return to work. What do you do with a paramedic that has a mental health injury? Where do you place them within the ambulance service that will assist them with their mental health injuries? What do you do with a paramedic that has an injured back that can no longer lift patients? Where do you place them if they can't work on the road? So the ambulance service has limited avenues for paramedics to return to work, and that's why when governments are dealing with legislation in supporting injured workers, the issue of weekly payments, compensation, return to work programs, proper return to work programs, and very active return to work officers within the industry, the respective industries, are so important. Of course, this bill amends the Workplace Injury Rehabilitation and Compensation Act 2013, the Accident Compensation Act 1985 and the Occupational Health and Safety Act 2004. It also is correcting minor drafting errors from the Workplace Safety and Other Matters Amendment Act 2022 and the Workplace Injury Rehabilitation Compensation Amendment Work Cover Scheme Modernisation Act 2024. And ultimately, these amendments aim to ensure that WorkSafe can continue to provide the best possible support to injured workers and to the families after work-related deaths in line with findings of the Rosen report and the Family Support Review. I'd take a moment just to acknowledge the important work that WorkSafe Victoria undertakes. And just before Easter, before the Easter recess that we had, we had the opportunity to attend the launch of the newest WorkSafe campaign, Don't Cross the Line, which was held here at Parliament House, and it was very informative to hear about the many ways that WorkSafe endeavours to reduce workplace harm and improve outcomes for injured workers. And of course, this was about workers in the different industries, hospitality in particular, of aggression and violence and even physical assault against them. And again, I'll refer back to my previous occupation as the Secretary of the Ambulance Union. I was involved with many other health sector unions that organised a campaign in regard to aggression and violence and assaults against healthcare workers, and that out of that campaign, WorkSafe formulated some commercials that were placed on TV in regard to not dissimilar to the Cross the Line or Don't Cross the Line campaign. It did have an effect. It did raise with the community that you're not to harm healthcare workers, as it should be with any worker in a workplace, that people should not have aggression and violence and even physical assault towards them. Of course, there were recommendations out of the Rosen report, which recommended that the objectives of the WIRC Act and the WorkSafe be amended to expressly provide for fair, respectful and dignified treatment of injured workers and their dependents by WorkSafe. And of course the provision of high quality services, and that is really important about getting high quality service and fair treatment. And we know that some of these insurance agencies certainly don't act appropriately when it comes to sometimes fair treatment and high quality services. And unfortunately insurance agencies always look at the almighty dollar, and I think they always put profits before people, which is disappointing when we're talking about people that have been injured at their work. Of course, work-related injury or illness, it's not a choice by an individual. I don't know of anyone that wants to go to work and deliberately injure themselves. It's certainly one of the worst outcomes that could happen in a worker's life. And again, as a previous
Order. Time's come for me to interrupt business.